Welcome to Python online classes. Now we are in Unit 4. In this Unit 4 we are going to learn about functions. In this functions chapter we have a session 1. So this is the agenda of the session 1. Function definition and syntax, parameters and arguments, types of functions, built-in functions, user-defined functions, Docstring, the return statement and void functions. So we'll go to the function definition. What is actual meaning of a function? So function is a group of related statement that perform a specific task. So let's say I have a one task which contains n number of statements. So I will write all those statements into one function. So whenever I call that respective function, that particular task will be executed. So I don't need to write that n number of functions again and again. I will write n number of functions into one block. So one function that will be executed whenever I require. That can be accessed or that can be called whenever I require. So functions help break our program into smaller and modular chunks. So whenever I have a large program with us, then I want to break that program into smaller pieces, then you can use multiple functions. So functions can useful to break your large program into smaller. It avoids repetition and makes code reusable. So I have a similar requirement in one project for n number of times. I no need to write the same requirement for again and again. What I will do, I will write once, I will use that particular code whenever I required. So that means it avoids repetition and makes code reusable. We'll see how these three things will work in practical session. So here, definition, syntax of a function. So keyword def marks the start of the function. So to create a function, we need to use a keyword called def. And here I need to write a function name. And thereafter I can have some parameters. So that means parameters here, what are the inputs for this respective function? So I can have n number of parameters. And in this block, I write n number of statements, one or n number of statements. After writing this statement, I need to come out from this block and I need to call a function with function name and here parameters. Whatever parameters you have passed, that parameters you need to call here. So what is here function call? Once we have defined a function, we can call it from another function or program or using the Python prompt. So you can call that respective function from another function or program or Python prompt. Call a function, we simplify type the function name with appropriate parameters. So we need to simply type function name and we need to pass a parameters whatever we have a parameters here. So that we can call it as a function call. So let's see some simple example here. So here what I am saying, providing a function definition with def sum xy. So xy both are parameters. So what I am doing, I am going to add x and y. I am taking one variable s is equal to x plus y and print the sum of two numbers is yes. So this is my statement. So whenever I am calling this function, sum 10, 20, these two things we can call it as arguments. So 10 and 20, 10 will be substituted with the x and 20 will be substituted with the y. So whenever I have a 10, 20, first it will take x as a 10 and y as a 20. Now it will do the performance. This is equal to 10 plus 20. Now it will give output as a 20. And now I have a one more time I am calling the same function with arguments 20 and 30. So here 20 will be substituted with the x and 30 will be substituted with the y and x plus y 20 plus 30 equal to 50. It will give the 50. This is how we can create a function and we can execute this function. So we'll see the same example on our terminal. So in our Python program, so I will type the same example here. So let's say control N. So I will say function. So I can go to Unit 4 and I say folder called examples. Here I say function 1. What I have done here, so first I am taking definition, any function name sum of x comma y. So here sum is function name x and y are parameters. So after writing a function definition, I need to create a block. So I will create a block, and so once I create a block, I will write some string. This function is useful to sum of add two numbers. I can say add two numbers. Add two numbers. So I will take one more variable s is equal to x plus y, and I say print sum of numbers. So what are the two numbers x and y? Is sum of x and y is yes. I am storing it yes. So this is our function. So once I complete this function end, and now I need to come out from the block. Now I need to call this function. To call the function, simply we need to give a sum, function name, and some arguments. So I will say 10 comma 20, and I say sum 20 comma 30. What does it do? So it will call the function two times. So it's calling the function two times. So here it's a calling the function. Calling the function. Calling the function with arguments 10 comma 20. And it's a calling a function arguments 20 comma 30. So this is how we can call the function. So now I will run this code. First it will call this first function. So what I will do, I will make it as a comment. Then you can understand easily. So I am calling only once 10 comma 20. So this 10 will be replaced with x and 20 will be substituted with the y. So I will run this code, run module. So I will get sum of 10 and 20 is 30. So what does it mean? So first it will check the function name, whether function name is valid or not, and it will check the parameters, two parameters and two arguments, and both are equal. If it is any wrong, then it will give the error. So now it's equal, then this 10 will be substituted with x and 20 will be substituted with y, and s is equal to 10 plus 20 30, and it will give the output. So if I give invalid parameters here, so that means I will give one argument where it contains the two parameters. Now it will raise an error. Run module. So it's an error. What is missing one required positional argument y? So one argument is missing. So this is an error. So what should I need to do? I need to take care of number of parameters and number of arguments should be equal. 10 comma 20. So now it will run. So it will not get any kind of error. So I can call function n number of times. So let's take, I will open one more statement, sum of 20 comma 30. So whenever I call this statement, first it will execute this sum 10 20, and then it will go to this statement, and 20 will be replaced with x and 30 is replaced with y. So x is equivalent to 20 and y equivalent to 30. Now it will get 50. So I will run this code again. So we will save. Okay. So this is how we can run our code. So two times I can call n number of times that function. So that means I can write code once. I can execute this code whenever I require. So this is what the advantage of the function. So now we will go to the PPT. Parameters and arguments. So what is parameter and what is argument? There can be two types of data passed in the function. One is argument and another one is the parameter. So here the first type of data is passed in the function call is called the argument. So argument is, what is argument? So whatever we are passing the data, then we are calling the function. So here I am calling the function and this is the data. This data we can call it as the argument. This is an argument. So this is what we can call it as an argument. And next, what is the statement here? Argument can be variable or expression. So we can have the arguments as a variable name or expression or value or anything we can have. Argument is the actual value of its variable that is passed to a function. So whatever argument we are giving, that will be passed to a function, that is the actual value of this variable. Now what is parameter? Second type of data is the received in the function definition. So whenever we define a function, whatever the data will receive, that particular data we can call it as a parameter. So parameter must a variable to hold incoming values. Whatever values we will get while calling the function, that values will be held into this parameter. Parameter is a variable in the declaration of a function. While we declare the function, we can write the parameters. For example, in this example, we have two parameters. While declaring the function, we have two parameters called x and y. And this x and y will hold the values whenever we call the function. So what the values? It will hold the values of this argument. So 10 will be held by x and 20 will be held by the y. So that's the difference between parameters and arguments. Now we'll see some example of the parameter and argument. So here I have a function called definition my function, first name and last name. First name and last name are the parameters. While creating the function, whatever we give the variables, this we can call it as the parameters. And print first name plus last name. I have some space here. Function calling. My function Ram Basar. Sorry, here Ram and Krishna should be there. Krishna. Okay. Ram and Krishna. So Ram and Krishna are arguments. So Ram and Krishna are arguments. So whenever I call this function, Ram will be substituted with the first name and Krishna will be substituted with the last name. We get output as a Ram Krishna. So these are F name and last name. F name and L name will be act as a parameters and Ram and Krishna will be act as a arguments. We will execute this program in our terminal whether it's working or not. So I will write new program. I say function 2. So first I will create a function called what is the function name here? I am taking my function. The function name is as my function. So we will create one function as a my function. So here definition my function name and name. Here my function is function name and F name and L name are arguments. Arguments are parameters or parameters. So I say print F name plus have some space plus L name. This is what our code. So now I need to call the function. So I'll call the function as my function and I will give two names. One is Ram and another one is Krishna. So here Ram and Krishna are, what are those arguments? So now I will run this code. So one module I will save. I am getting Ram Krishna. So Ram and Krishna. So Ram will be substituted with the F name and Krishna will be substituted with the L name, and in between that we have some space. So I will get output as a Ram space Krishna. We will run this code. So we are getting Ram space Krishna. So this is what is difference between parameters and arguments. So these two things are parameters and where these two things are arguments. So whenever you define the function, whatever variables you will give, those things we can call it as a parameters. And whenever you call the function, the variables or values you will give, that things we can call it as a arguments. So now we'll go to the PPT. Types of functions. So functions widely divided into two types. So first type is the built-in function and second type is that user-defined function. So we'll see what is the difference between this built-in function and user-defined function. So first we'll go with the built-in function. Functions that come built into the Python language itself are called built-in functions, are readily available. So whatever we have some predefined function in the Python programming language itself, that we can call it as a built-in functions. So for example, we have a print is a one function, input is a one function, length is a one function, etc. So that thing that already ready-madely available in our Python programming language, and we can use those functions whenever we require. So that thing we can call it as a built-in functions. So here some list of built-in functions are there. We'll see how these functions will get executed. Max, x, y, z. So x, y, z are the arguments, and we can get any one of these x, y, z as a maximum value. For example, I have a max 80, 100,000. So maximum of this all three is 1,000. And max minus 80, minus 20, minus 10. Maximum of all these things is at minus 10. So whatever it may be, it will get the output. So we'll see the example in terminal. And we have some other functions here. So minimum function, it will give the minimum of this number of arguments, and comparison function. So it will give the difference between the two functions. So what happens? It returns the sign the difference of two numbers minus 1 if x less than y. Clear? 0 if x is equal to y, or 1 if x is greater than y. So this function will return three things. One is minus 1 or 0 or plus 1. If both the values are equal, then it will give the 0. If first x less than y, then it will give the minus 1. X greater than y, it will give the plus 1. So comparison 80, 100 minus 1 because it is less than, and 180, 100 is a greater than plus 1. If both are equal, then I will get 0. And length, return the length, number of items of an object. Argument may be a sequence, string, tuple, list, or mapping a dictionary, whatever it may be. So it will give the number of items in the respective object. So here I have a list, I have 3 items, then I will get length of 3 is equal to 3, length of A is equal to 3, and I have a B is equal to hello, length of B is equal to 5 characters, then I will get 5. And range function you have seen in your function. In your loops, range start, stop, and step value. So range where we need to start and where we need to stop and where we need to, what is the step value for I in range 0 to 30 and step value is 5, then I will get 0, 5, 10, 15, each and every increment is a 5. These are the different functions you have, user defined functions. Now we will execute these 4 functions. However, we have executed this range function in our test examples. So now we will go to the quickly. I will save this file as go to my Unit-4 chapter. Where is my Unit-4? So examples, I say function 3. Save. It's overwrite, and then I will use any one of these 2 or 3 functions of the table. So print the max 20, 40, 50. It will take maximum of these three numbers. So I will get output as a 50. Print the minimum of 10, 20, 30. So it will take minimum of these three numbers. I will get output as a 10, and I say A is equal to hello, and I want to print the length of this A. Print the length of A, it will get output as a 5. So we will check whether this code is working or not. I say run. So I need to get 50, 10 and 5. So I say OK. So 50, 10 and 5. So these are the functions. We can call it as a predefined functions in our Python programming language. You can ready-madely use these functions whenever you require. So now we'll go to the next slide. So here is the next slide. So user-defined functions and its advantages. Functions that we have defined ourselves to do certain specific tasks are referred as user-defined functions. So we will define our function. Those functions will not available in the Python programming language, but we'll write our own functions. For example, we have written the two functions in previous examples as like a sum and a my function. Those functions we can call it as a user defined function. So what are the advantages of this user defined functions? User defined functions help to decompose a large program into small segments, which makes program easy to understand and maintain and debug. So what this do, it will create a large programs into small chunks that will be useful to easy to understand and easy to maintain the code, and as well as easy to debug that respective code. If repeated code occurs in program, function can be used to include those codes and execute when needed by calling that function. So whenever I have a repeated code in our program, so I do not need to write a repeated code again and again. What should I need to do? I need to call that respective function whenever I require that particular code. So that is the useful of the user defined function. And programmers working on large projects can divide the workload by making different functions. So whenever in organization I have a project which contains a very huge in the format size. So I have a large project. I can divide the project into different functions, and I can assign those functionalities to different employees. So that is how we can benefited by the user defined function. So here is a one simple example of the user defined function. Definition message. I have some print statement. I am working on it. Shall let you know once I finish it off. So this is the two statements are there. I say calling the function message. I don't have any kind of parameters or argument. So these type of functions we can call it as a empty parameterized functions. So whenever it's a empty, I need to call with the empty. So we'll see this example in our Python terminal. So I will go to Python. So I will take new file. So I will save it as a function4. Say definition message function with zero parameters. Function with zero parameters. And now write some print statement. Hello, and I say one more print. Two statements, and here I am calling the function. So what is the function name here? Message. Whenever you say message, it will call the function, and message contains the two statements. It will execute these two statements. So I will run this code, run module. So okay, it's executing hello and hi. Two statements are executed when we call the function. So here 0 arguments and 0 parameters. So this is how we can create a user defined functions. Previous examples, my function and as well as sum, also known as a user defined functions. Now we'll go to the next slide. So next slide is all about docstring. So what is docstring? The first string after the function header is called the docstring. So the first string after the function header, once you declare the function, the whatever will write the first string, we can call it as a docstring. In short form we known as a documentation of string. That means it will be useful to explain a brief what function does. So what is the function main requirement? We can write all the definition of that respective function in the docstring. Although it's optional, documentation is a good programming practice. So docstring is a concept is optional in our function, but whenever you have a docstring, that will be known as a good programming practice. So here is the one function is the definition greet and one parameter as a name, and I have some kind of documentation string stating that this function greets to the person passed in as parameter. So if you greet the person as a passed in as a parameter, I say hello, name and good morning. So print a greeted doc. So this is how we can get the documentation of this function. So documentation of this function, it will print the documentation. Whenever I call this function, that particular function will be get executed. We will see this example in our terminal. Whatever first string after the function header is known as a documentation string. So this documentation string is useful to give the brief explanation of function what does it do. Okay. So now we'll see the example of this respective documentation string. So I will say control N. I say function 5, and I have a definition greet, and I say name is a one parameter, function with one parameter as name. I can write some docstring here. So what is my docstring here? This function is useful to greet a person who so something. So after that I will say print hello is a name. Like simply saying hello some name. Whenever I call the function, I will pass some name. So I will come out from the function. I will say calling a function. So you can simply call the function as a greet of Ram. So it will give output as a hello Ram. Hello space Ram. So this is how we are greeting the function. And now I want to get this description of the function. To get the description, we have a docstring as some method greet dot doc. So I will write the same code here. So what I will do, we will go to that function. So I say print greet is a function name dot. Here you need to give a double underscore 1, 2, and you have a doc and double underscore. It will give the documentation string. So it will give documentation string. So documentation string as output. So whatever you will write in this string, that particular thing will come as an output. So I will run this code, run module. So first I will get hello Ram and then documentation. So here is the hello Ram documentation, and this is function. This function is useful to greet a person who passes as parameter. So I am passing a parameter as Ram. So that is a function name hello Ram. So that's it. So whatever you will write here, these greet characters are optional. Whatever you can write, that particular string will become as a doc. Here. So this is how we can use a doc string in our Python programming language. Remember that here it's a double underscore. So here it's a is double underscore. Clear? So now we'll go to the PPT. So this is all about docstring. Now we can have a return statement. The return statement is used to return a value from the function and goes back to the place where it was called with the expression. So what does it do? It will return a value and it will goes back to that respective place where it has called. Return statement may contain a constant or variable or expression. If return is used without anything, it will return none. So return statement may contain a constant, or it may contain a variable, or it may contain an expression. If nothing is written, then it will give none as a return statement. So here we have two examples. One is a definition change me x, return x. So that means it will return the x. Whenever it returns the x, it will not print anything. It will return the x. Say return x is equal to 5 and print change me x. So I need to make it as a change function. Print statement, and here definition change me return nothing and x is equal to 5 and print change me x. So it's calling the function. We'll see how this return statement will work with our function. Now we'll go to the next slide. Void function. Function perform a task and does not contain a return statement. Such function are called as a void function. So function perform a task, it does not contain a return statement. That we can call it as a void functions. Void function do not return anything. So they will not return anything. Yes. And none is a special type in Python which is returned after a void function ends. So whenever you access whenever you call this function with one variable, it will return as a none because it's a void function. So here result will store the none as well as its results, both the things. Whenever I write this code, print result will store the result of this function and as well as none. So I will get false and none because I am passing the number as a 29. 29 is an odd number, it will get the false. This is how void function will work. So now we'll see couple of examples how return and void will works in our Python programming. So that's all about today's PPT. We'll go with the two examples and we'll close this session. So now we'll go to this new file, Control S, say function 6. First example of return. So I say definition change me and I am saying x. I say return x. X value. So that's it. Or you can add some logic here also. You can add some logic. I will say some logic is x is equal to x plus 10. I am changing the x value. So x is equal to x plus changing x value with x plus 10. With x plus 10. Clear? And it will return the x value, new x value, whatever x value is there. So whenever I call this function, so function is single parameter, yes? Function with a single parameter as x. As x. So now I will call this function. I say change me of 5. Whenever I say 5 as an argument, 5 is an argument. So now whenever I call this function, in previous example I got the print statement. Whatever it's available inside the function, that particular things will be printed. But here I don't have any kind of print statement in the return. So change me will access the function and it will return x. That x will be stored into this particular function only, but it will not print to the console. To print to the console, what I need to do, I need to write this statement in the print block, in the print function. Print change me of 5. Now it will print the return value. Whenever I pass 5 as x, x will become 5 plus 10 15 and return x, that means it will return the value as a 15. So I will get output as a 15. Or else I need to store this function into one variable. So one variable as result is equal to change me of 20. So I am passing as a 20. And now this result will store change me of 20 value. So what is the value here? So whatever function is returns the value. For example, here x is equal to 20 and x is equal to x plus 10, that means 20 plus 10, 30. So it will store 30. So now I can print result. It will print output as a 30. So this is how we can use a function with the return. So whenever I have a return, then I need to store that value or return value into a variable, or else I need to print to the console. Then only I will get output. Otherwise, I will not get output in this case. In this case, I will not get any output. Here. Now we will execute this program. So I need to get, I have a 4 statements, but I will get only 3 outputs, 2 outputs only. What are those? 15 and 30. Here is the storing a value. I am not giving output. Storing return value into variable result. Yes. So now I will run this code. Run module. So I say save. So 15 and 30. So this is how return will works. 15 and 30. So if I say nothing is returned. So for example, I say return nothing. Automatically by default it will return as a none. It will return as a none. So now all the outputs will become as a none. All the outputs will become as none. So it will become a none, and same way this will also become none. Because I am nothing is returning. I am returning nothing. I say run module. So I will say okay. So I am getting 2 none statements here. So you can observe the output as a 2 none statements. So here is a 2 none statements. 2 times I am calling the function. So 2 none statements. So this is how return function will work. So with returning something and returning it's nothing. So I will return something as a x. Here. Now I will run this code. So it will return 15 and 30. So this is how we can use a return function. And now we'll see with the example as a void. So control N. So new file. I say function 7. So now I will write one more function, definition sum, or 10 comma, sorry, I will take comma y function with parameter. 1 or 2 parameters, okay. Parameters as x and y. Okay, fine. So now I will have a print x plus y. I am printing x plus y. So now I will call the function. So I say sum is equal to comma 20. So here what I am doing, I am creating a function with void and don't have any return. I am simply calling the function without storing this value, return value into a variable. So it will print x plus y. So I can simply call it as x plus y as a 30. So now if I store a value into variable, so let's take I store value as a result is equal to sum in 20. So result will be store the value as a none, and sum 1020 will store as a 30. So result will store 30 and as well as none. So first I will run this code. So whenever I run this code, I will get only 30 because it's a calling and the result is storing none. I am not printing result. So if I print result, now I will get a none. Result will store as a none. So because I am not returning anything, so by default it will get a none is a special type. So I will say run module, and result will store the none. So this is how we can use a void function. So void function does not use a return statement, but by default it will return the none. By default it will return the none, and it will not return anything. If you won't store this particular function into variable, it will not return anything. It will not return anything. So if you store this particular function call into a variable, it will return none is a special type. So that's it. We can call it as a void function. So better to not to store this value, and simply we can call that sum only. So I will get only 30 as a output. So I will say run module. So okay. So it's a 30. So this is all about Unit 4 Session 1, and now I will close this session. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in Google Class or in Moodle or else in your WhatsApp. That's all for today. Have a nice day. See you soon. Bye.